In this video, we're going to create this photorealistic start-stop button that's oftentimes used as ignition in cars. I also have two quick reminders. If you'd like to download the source file for this and use it in your own project, check the link in the description below. And if you're new to Figma and want to learn Figma, I have a playlist called Figma Basics that will get you started with this app. Now let's actually see how this is built in Figma. The aim is to make this look really realistic, which means we would have to work with a lot of gradients, shadows, and other stuff to make this approximate the actual thing as much as possible. So why don't we start with an ellipse that's going to be like 400 by 400 pixels. It's going to be dark gray, and we also create a frame that's going to be 1500 by 1000. It's going to be our frame where the button is going to be placed. So we'll start with this circle, then use the text tool to create start and stop. And also we'll use a rectangle to create some kind of light or an indicator that will shine when it's actually on. This will be the indicator, and then start, stop. I don't think we should be adding more words like engine. I think that's too many words. This is not gonna be particularly big, so let's just keep it at start, stop. I think that's the most makes sense. It's gonna be like 60 pixels, and this one is gonna be 120 by 30, let's say, like this, or maybe by 25. Yeah, I think that's enough. It's gonna be centered. All of this is gonna be centered against the circle, and we're gonna group this and then center this whole thing. I think this looks good. All right, this is gonna be actually white, and this thing is gonna be very dark. Also, when turned off, the color is also gonna be like slightly lighter gray, but not too much. Copy is gonna be gray as well. Now I'm gonna duplicate this ellipse, make it a bit larger, move it into the background. And this one's gonna be almost black. So let's say like this. This is supposed to be a tiny bit of space between the button and the rest of the edges of the button, basically. So the button will kind of go like this, you know? Yeah, I'm gonna group this and say that this is gonna be the moving part of the button. This is gonna be the edge one. And it's gonna have a stroke that's gonna be on the outside, gonna be quite wide, like this. And I think we could go for a gradient. So this gradient is gonna have like more colors. So that's not gonna be just one, multiple. Yeah, that's how we achieve the metallic chrome look. Gonna think about if this is gonna be a radial gradient or a linear gradient. Maybe let's experiment with a radial one, like this. This looks kind of chromey, and so it will go like this. We also have to probably duplicate this to the background and then make it bigger, approximately like this. And I'm gonna reverse this gradient. I'm gonna have to play around with this. Yeah, so the idea here is that if we visualize this from from the side, we would have basically like a triangle profile like this. We just create these guides and get a bit technical. So this is, if I visualize this in 3D a little bit, this is what I have in mind, right? So it goes like up. When you go to the right, it goes up from the button, and then once you reach this second outline, it will start to go down like this, right? So it reflects, this profile kind of reflects what's going on here. And then my plan is to kind of have the button go like this, right? So this will mean that this, of course, will be on the other side as well. So if you consider this button from the side, this is kind of the profile that I want to go for. So the button won't be flat, it will be slightly convex, and then these edges will go like an up and then down. So I'm gonna hide these guides. So this means we have to play with the gradient of these edges to kind of show that if the light were coming from the top left, these gradients would have to be reversed against one another, right, in some way. So if the light is coming up from here, we will see the reflection of light go up here if we are talking about the outer edge, whereas the inner edge, that's going to be the opposite. So the light is coming up from here. I'm just gonna draw a little So let's say this is the light, it's coming from this direction. You can see the reflection on the outer edge will be somewhere around here, and the light can't reach this inner edge of this inner opposite side sloping edge, so that's going to be reflected on the other side, right? So here you can kind of see the result. You can automatically perceive this as being sloped in the opposite directions. We can increase or decrease these edges just by adjusting the size of the stroke, so that's nice. I think we could go for like this. Yep, that looks pretty convincing. Maybe this one will be a little bit darker, so we're gonna establish a second stroke that's gonna be black, and then we're going to play around with the transparency of this gradient. And then also maybe we want to add like a base for all of this. So there's going to be, again, if we visualize this from the side, maybe there's going to be another like a base, which would mean we would have to create another circle, remove the stroke, move that into the background like this, and then add strokes, or actually add inner shadows of white coming from the top left, reflecting the direction of the light. Gonna be quite blurred. And maybe another stroke, another inner shadow, that's gonna be black and coming from the bottom right. So what do you think? I don't know, I don't like it. I don't like it. What if we kept this without an inner shadow and just did a radial gradient like this? Yeah, that could work, right? So we have edge 1, edge 2 and edge 3. And so just to reiterate, the button would go like this and then back. Maybe not that much, just a little bit like this and then back. Right, and also we have to make the actual button look 3D a little bit. So how do we do that? Again, we go to our radial gradient technique and we just kind of do this. So white from the top left and then black from the bottom right. That makes it look a bit 3D. Also, this looks a bit weird. So why don't we add transparency to this? So that's gonna be like transparent white instead of gray, because I think this looks better. I'm gonna play around with the gradients to make it look really metallic. So maybe increase this color more to white so that it really looks as if the light is reflecting from the top left. And then some of these colors are going to be really, really dark. And then the inner one, make this color lighter. Maybe this one a bit darker. Yeah, I'm going to make this base a little bit lighter and then make these this edge to kind of drop a shadow on that. So let's try how that works. Yeah, I think this works. And also this very outermost edge, the base, is gonna drop a shadow as well. Maybe like this. Maybe not that blurry, but very subtle. Maybe we wanna add, so if this were the profile, these things would cast the shadow onto the button right here. So in the very edge right here, that would not be the lightest place. So why don't we add another shadow, another gradient? It's gonna be like a tiny reflection. Yeah, I think this gradient really makes, brings the button to the front. Let's just see, like this is after, before, after, before, after. Yeah, I'm gonna test how this looks on a dark background. So maybe you wanna have to copy these parameters right here. Yeah, just kind of reflect. So since all of these elements have like gradients, it imitates light coming from the top left. This background needs to have that as well. So if we just use black, this looks very flat. That's not what we are going for, right? So we want to create like a gradient right here that would help this button fit in with the environment. We also might want to add a stroke to this base, going from white to black to simulate like an edge. It's going to be actually inside, just a very, very subtle, like this. Yeah, that works. What we could do now, we could also add another rectangle. Just, if you saw this button in real life, it wouldn't be just placed on such a bland background. It would be, there would be something in the background, right? So we need to experiment with some objects, maybe like this, make it very subtle, or make these black. Yeah, you can imagine this as something that would hold the button in its place. So like a dent in the dashboard, for example, something like that, it would be like this with some outer shadow and another one going in the opposite direction. So these are here just to make this look visually interesting. So without these three rectangles, I mean, it would look kind of boring, and even without the gradient. So if we just added the gradient and then we add these three rectangles, this looks really interesting, right? So that's the whole point. And I think we could now turn this button into a component and define the interaction. So I'm gonna click and drag this over here, remove the previous version, or just move it upwards. We don't need this as well. Right, this is gonna be the default state before any light is on. I'm gonna select all of this and then turn this into a component. This is gonna say start stop button, and this is gonna have three states. It's gonna have the default state, then the pressed down state when this button is actually, pushed back into the encasing, and then when it's on, so this light will be on when the engine is actually on. I'm gonna create another variant. This variant is gonna be called press down, and then another variant that's gonna be called on. So this is off, pressed, and on. Let's define what happens when this is pressed down. So this is going to be a bit smaller to kind of show that it's being pushed into the background, right? It's going to be a bit darker also because since it's kind of pushed into a hole, there will be less light, which means the button would have to be darker like this. And right, so it's pushed down, it has this darker look. Also the text is gonna be a bit darker. It's gonna be like this. So the whole thing is just pushed down, and this is gonna be darker as well. And then when it's actually on, this thing is gonna be green and shining green. So this is gonna be absolutely visible, not only visible, but even glowing, right? So it's gonna be like, this looks glowy. And just to really drive the point home that this element is glowing, we're going to add a drop shadow that's going to be this color, going to be centered against the element, so x and y coordinates, there's going to be nothing, and we will have a big blur and complete visibility, high spread even, right? Maybe we want to make this lighter, so this really looks as if it's shining, and that's the whole point. We want to add another gradient, a color first, that's going to be lighter, it's going to look more shiny, more contrasting, like this, and it's going to be a radial gradient, going to be visible very much so. So now this looks as if it's actually shining. Let's think about how this could affect these edges. So one of the colors could be closer to the green one, right? It could be something like this. So the way we're going to do this is change a bit of the underlying color, yes, to this greenish color right here. Yeah, so this makes it look as if the light were reflecting on this outer edge, or this inner edge actually. Yeah, maybe we don't want to have such a huge press down, maybe like this. And also these letters could be shining a little bit as well. So first of all, we're gonna make them white, and not only white, but with a drop shadow and a white one to make them look glowing. So now if you compare these two, these three, this is the look we are going for. So this definitely looks as if it's shining, right? The letters and this diode, this little light, green light. So this looks quite convincing. We have this, so these three states, that's finished. Now we will define the interaction. Let's go to prototype and define that, click and drag like this, and define that while pressing. And this is going to be very important. It's going to say smart animate so that this actually moves. I'm not sure if this will work. We're gonna have to test. And then from here, it's gonna say mouse up, change to property on, and that's gonna be smart animate as well. Let's actually go to assets, then click and drag this button onto this frame. And let's see this live. And this is the current state. I press down, I hold it pressed down, and then release. and it's on. And also the colors change and everything's, you know, different. It's shining. So what I think could be improved here is the fact that I think this is going down just too little. I think we could push it down even more. You know, when you push this down, it could be even smaller to look as if it's really pressed down significantly, and then make this quicker. So scale tool, I'm gonna do this, maybe even change the color of these letters. Let's test this out. No. What I think could be improved here is actually the color of this background. This looks very flat. I think it needs to look more as an actual tunnel. How could we do that? Radial gradient, again, maybe like this. Can we make this look as a tunnel? Do we need an angular gradient? Or like this? I'm actually not sure how to achieve this. Anyway, we also need to add another state so that if we click this in between state and then another variant, we need to create a loop of sorts. So if we now again prototype and remove this connection and then go here to create another while pressing, and this variant is going to be called press down 2. It's going to be while pressing smart animate ease out 200 milliseconds, and then here. So that's going to be mouse up. Now we can, when I test this, I can go, you know, back and forth. That's the goal. Maybe we need to make all of these interactions quick. So select all of those and go 100 milliseconds, 100 milliseconds here as well. And maybe these are indeed too much pressed down. So again, I'm gonna adjust this to 340. Same here. And all of these are gonna be ease in and out. Ease in and out. Ease in and out. Ease in and out. Yeah, I think this is finished. I can't think of any other improvements to make. So this is the result. We press down and hold it pressed down. It's being pushed to the background, then we release and we have a new state where it's shining and it looks very much as an on state, and then we click again and hold, same interaction going back and forth. So thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and also if you'd like to download the source file for this, check the link in the description below. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.